Hello and welcome to Daft Souls episode number 34, and we've got a plethora of people here today. Plethora. All right, so if you say it like that, it doesn't
got
work.
lots of people.
Got loads. We've got Stephen Hogarty.
Hello, how's it going?
We've also got Gavin Murphy.
Hello.
We've got Aoife Wilson.
Hello, I just got your joke.
Yeah,
I wonder why you were giving us such a hard time about it.
I liked it. I was like,
It's
I'm
good.
getting ribbed for this unfairly.
You only had 2 on last week, now you got 4 on this week. You need to sort out your fucking scheduling,
I
mate.
know, right? It's difficult. It's difficult.
I'm only here because I was dropping something off.
Yeah, pretty much like Steve just got snared.
But can't waste that. Come on, get him on.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Podcast professional Stephen Hogarty. He's what when you going like playing any games. Nah.
No. Sorry, I didn't like video games very much.
What's this podcast again?
Oh, it's the video games one, is it?
I bought a feature now. So
Sort of awkward, he didn't know how to leave. But anyway, he's here. We're all here. So, Gav, why don't you start us off? You've been playing a game that came out on the PlayStation 4 quite recently.
yeah, I played the all. I've seen loads of questions on the Twitter.
We had lots of questions. I guess because it's probably one of the few games that's happened in the past week or two, which has been deemed to be a big release.
That's been a big deal.
It's they were getting really behind it.
There's something weird about this game. I haven't played it, so I can't really comment on it, but there's something about the whole lead up to it that it kind of has brought out some of the crazies, online. I don't know, it's
and also in games press as well. I saw some people really vitriolic, sort of banding against it. And it's just it's when people for some reason get behind one thing in a game. I remember it really annoyed me when Ground Zeroes came out. People were like, "Oh, speedrun thing, you can speedrun it," and people getting behind that rather than talking about the actual game and stuff that's going on in the game and characters and stuff. No, we're going to talk about the speedrun thing. And with this, the length of it has been one of the things. And actually, the length isn't its biggest problem. There's a lot of problems going on in that game. I really liked it. For all its shitty faults, it looks awesome. I really like the setting. I really like the characters. I like the idea that they've come up with, this sort of knights thing that's kind of a little bit reminds you of Assassin's Creed and that sort of thing, but it's already way better than Assassin's Creed. It's a fun game to play. Except
what is the setting?
problem,
what is
So it's set basically you're a knight and you've been knighted, and it's your job to sort of protect this sort of era. But there's been other knights as well. So there's other eras, and it's sort of hinting at the fact that it's a franchise. So there's going to be in Assassin's Creed, where the next game is set somewhere else. It sort of hints
the
at
Order
that.
1996.
Exactly, yeah. And it sort of hints at that, which that'd be awesome.
That would be awesome.
It'd be really good. And so it's sort of like that. Your job at the moment is to protect this evil from this evil force, and this evil force is through the ages sort of thing.
I've heard that it's kind of fun, but also it's kind of short, and also it's kind of just feels very much like a last gen game. It's just another kind of cover shooter. Is that fair?
It's fair to say.
I mean, it's not scathing. It's
No.
just
Yeah, that's sort of fair to say. The short thing though, I don't know. It looks amazing. It's a new thing, and people going on about saying it's only 6 hours long. It's only 5.5 hours long. It's yeah, but you're paying 40 quid for it. That's a night out.
Yeah.
I paid 40 quid for a night out.
Yeah, but you're maybe either an alcoholic or just or maybe generous.
40 quid is the normal. I pay way more for a night out.
You're in London mode now.
Yeah.
That's 40 quid is still a lot of money, and that's the thing you've got to
Games
remember.
too long, man.
I think the problem
still.
is when it's comparative, right?
Yeah.
It's not just that on its own. It's the fact that you could take that 40 quid and get another game Destiny or whatever that has an online mode that you can play for months and months. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And then you have games that maybe are a little bit shorter than that that are on the online store or whatever that are half the price.
I'm all for short
That's-
games, but I think it's just the pricing is
Yeah.
you
I
can't
think when
justify
people,
that.
because this game got a lot of flack for being too short, even before people had played it. And I think if people play a game and they come away from it going, it's too short, I don't think they're making the length versus quality comparison. What they're really trying to say is there's something about that game that left them feeling unsatisfied by the time they finished it. Because I think you can finish a 6-hour game and go, you know what, I feel like I got a lot of stuff out of that. A lot of my time is well spent with that.
Yeah.
But if you come away from it going, this was too short, there's something in the game that has left you wanting.
You're right. I mean, I think Prince of Persia, the first one on the PlayStation 2, was about 8 hours, and I remember being totally satisfied with the length of that.
Yeah.
It felt perfect. But I can see why 5 or 6, especially because I tend to dip in stuff. But with some people, they'll just come home and they'll just put a game and they'll play it all night.
Yeah.
To be done with a game in an evening,
Yeah.
and you just spent 40 quid on it, it's a bit much.
But that's the thing, though. I mean, I think I finished The Last of Us in a day.
Yeah.
You know?
I finished in 2 sit-ins.
But it's like that story, it was satisfying, like you said.
Yeah.
And the thing with, a lot of people were saying with The Order is, oh, it's got no replayability, I'll never play it again. But if a story is good, and that's not so much of a problem.
Yeah.
Like,
No.
you know?
I think it comes down to like afterwards. I remember what I did with Prince of Persia. I think it was like 8 hours, and I worked out it cost me about £3 an hour or something. And I was like, I had more than £3 an hour worth of fun. Whereas I guess with the Order, you might be looking at like maybe close to 6 or 7. I'm not very good at maths.
Yeah. I have to admit, like, I think Steve made a really good point where it's like people are going into it before even the game came out. People are like, oh, it's really short, and people go into it thinking that. And I think that's what has been the thing about the game.
I agree with you on that though, because I
Yeah.
think that the weirdest thing for the Order for me was it feels like in many ways, and this sounds like I'm putting a tinfoil hat on here, but it very much felt like for no apparent reason the press very much had it in for the Order from
Definitely,
day one.
yeah.
I think Games Press can sort of band you together and fall in line when it comes to certain kinds of things like
I don't get that at all, because I played it and I was just like, I played it after everyone, because I've been on holiday, so I played it after everyone had been just slagging it off like repeatedly, and then I sat down and played it and thought, I came away from that thinking that gave me exactly the amount that I wanted out of that, and I'm actually looking forward to a sequel for that, because I think that's what they're going to do, and I'm actually really looking forward to where they go to next. But the thing that annoyed me about it was like Games Press that I really like and games websites that I really, really like making this massive thing about the length, when actually there's so much more in the game. There's this one thing that it does, and LA Noire did it as well, which the reason I hated LA Noire. Whereas
asset
like
thing?
No, not that so much. It's like where they introduce like a mechanic and they go, okay, well, you press this button to run. You're like, okay, sweet, that's the run button. But actually, no, you can only run when you're allowed to run. Like, you can't run all the
sounds
time.
awful.
And it's just like, and LA Noire did it all the time, where it was like, they introduced like a tackle button. Okay, that's the tackle button. And then there's like a bit where you're running after someone, you think, oh, I'll just press the tackle button. Oh no, the tackle button doesn't work there. You can only tackle at certain points. And this does a sort of a similar thing as well, where like they introduce a run button, you're like, okay, sweet, I can just run through this bit, or I can go this bit. No. It's like, you have to go down this line, and you're very much playing like their storyline, and you can't really deviate from that at all. Like they control it to the point where they want you to control it at the speed they want you to see it as well. And there's like, no, slow down. You need to look at all this, and you need to see everything that's going on in our speed.
That
not
drives
in the way
me
you're doing it.
mental.
Yeah, exactly.
The latest Call of Duty did that. It had sections where it expected you to... Sections where it was like expected you to get like very quickly from A to B, and had your characters constantly shouting you again and again, going, come on. And I'm like, I'm fucking trying. And then having bits where it's like, we want you to look at this. So you
spent a lot of money on this.
I think they were actually hiding loading screens as well, but it had sections where like they just have bits where they have corridors that would just be like slightly too full of the people. So you'd be like trying to find a way through all these people.
There's loads of chairs in front of you.
It was really obvious. Like, what are you doing?
But then that's the thing, that's so infuriating. And for me, when I was playing it, I was like, I hadn't seen anybody mention this.
That's the problem. Like, I haven't covered The Order at all from a work perspective. So, like, the only thing I really know about it is Victorian London, really short. Like, that's it. I haven't really seen anyone tackle any kind of other angle,
I think
because that's the thing.
Games Press has done a little bit of a disservice for this game. In that I'm keenly interested in games. I don't know much about this game, having read previews of it.
Yeah, it's really hard to say though. I also think that there was something about the way it was announced. I think it was at E3 a couple of years ago that was just a bit of a damp squib. I remember because I did the little stupid video back then about like rating all of the games at E3 out of 10, and I think I went back and I did say 6. I think there was just something about it. It kind of looked like that's going to come out quite soon after launch, and it'll be all right. But I think they just haven't done, I don't know, but I think the length thing is not entirely unfair though, because I don't think it's entirely that people are fixating on it. I think it's the problem is it's not like it's a short game, therefore it's a bad game. It's just a short game, therefore there's a lot more pressure on it being either cheap or really good.
People's feelings when they finish it and feel like they haven't got enough. Those are real feelings of disappointment with the game.
I mean, that's the thing. If somebody says this game's only 5 hours long, then it's like, okay. But then it's like, but it's one of the
fucking
best
awesome.
fight.
It's like
I've
Journey.
done.
Like Journey's
Yeah,
like 2 hours long.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
standard.
Yeah.
I mean,
No
like
one
if you have like
begrudges that.
50 quid a month to spend on a game, you
Yeah.
want to know that that money is is going to be worth your time, because you
Yeah.
could have bought like 2 or 3 other games with that.
To me, it feels very much like a casualty of just where we're at now in terms of like, the cycles reset, which mean games have to be really expensive again, regardless of what they are. And it's just like, if it was 25 quid,
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would care. I think 40 quid is fair. And I think it's. I know what you mean. It seems unfair for the press to all go, it's really short.
Yeah.
But actually, for a lot of people, a lot of like gamers and who just want to buy something new to play, who haven't got a lot of money, I think that was potentially one of the most important things for them to know.
Get a better job, earn more money, mate. That's what. Like, that's the thing. I hate.
You're
like
sounding
being part.
very London.
Yeah, I hate being part of Games Press though. You have to go. You have to think of like consumers and stuff like that. It's just like no.
Gav,
Gav.
I'm gonna tell people if I like a game or not. I'm not thinking like, okay, I'm liking it, but if you're poor, you might not like this game.
I mean,
like,
usually,
but that's-
I think when I'm writing about games, I don't usually take the cost of the game into account.
Definitely not.
I'll
I
say
do.
this is
Oh,
what
absolutely, I do.
This
I
is
do.
what the game is. This is what I think it's worth, like value wise for your time and how much entertainment you're going to get from it. The decision as to whether or not you want to spend £40 on this is entirely up to you,
Yeah.
because your circumstance is going to be different to the next person's.
Yeah, but you got to
I
give
get
people,
that.
to give people a frame of reference, and there's so much variety in terms of pricing already on the market that I think it's dumb not to account for that. Frankly.
Yeah, I think it's like, if obviously things are going to be priced differently according to, the development and and everything else,
Yeah.
but like you can't sort of rate it in a bubble. It's like, everything else is sort
But
of.
that's the thing. When I played it, I didn't feel let down, because you look at it and it's one of the most gorgeous games I've ever looked at on a PS4. I think it looked amazing. Like the world they've created is just brilliant. It's really dense and like it's so impressive to look at. And I just think that's where the money's gone. Like, and if that's why it's 40 quid, I'm alright with that.
I guess it's how important you feel that is.
Yeah.
With comparison to a game that you could play for hours and hours and hours.
Would
that-
you mark a game down if you thought it was too expensive?
I wouldn't mark it down, well, because you're a gamer
don't even know
doesn't
how much games
have
cost.
That's true.
review scores
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
but I would flag it. I think I would, because I think like people, that's one of the reasons they read reviews, right? To know that this is worth spending your money on. I think that's an important
That's true.
factor. to
As a
people.
consumer guide, that's
Yeah.
part of a review, isn't it?
Yeah,
to
I think.
be a
I mean,
consumer guide.
I honestly think that if you go for reviews at launch, it's got to be partly a consumer guide. Otherwise, it's just. I mean, it's all very well to have.
And then what happens in 6 months' time when this game is
It's
cheap?
cheaper.
and it's a
Yeah,
bargain
well,
bin?
Well, that's
You just
why
made a
it's
face when I
fair.
said I don't know how much games cost. Like, I generally don't know how much. Like,
Just you're coming across a bit like somebody who gets games for free and doesn't care about anything else.
yeah, no, like I do buy games, but like I don't know. I don't. If I don't think I've ever come away from something going, except for Eternal Champions on the Mega Drive. I've never come away from anything going, that was a waste of my money. I don't think.
I mostly play games on PC where things are on sale all the time.
Yeah.
Things are incredibly cheap.
Well, that's the thing. It's
always on sale. And like PlayStation Plus has like completely ruined what I think games cost and
Yeah,
everything like
yeah.
that, because I've got free games, awesome games, just all the time, and I think.
But you've got to. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's also a question of this is the industry, right? And how does that industry keep running and keep sort of ticking over if we don't sort of price things correctly? I
Make
don't know.
these
It
blockbuster
seems-
games that cost that
Yeah,
much.
I think that's.
you've got to do it on the setup. Like, if what something is available and how much it costs. I mean, the way you get around it is quite simply by saying it's not worth this money, but it's definitely worth this. Right? It's like, and that's fair.
Definitely wait for it to come on PlayStation Plus.
Well, no, some games you play and you go like, this is, and it's so dumb that the console market just hasn't got there. Whereas like recently on Steam, I've been playing loads of stuff. Like I was playing like a kind of 4X game, like Endless Legend. I didn't completely love it that much, but it was £15. And you know what? £15 was exactly what that game should have cost.
Yeah,
There was no part of me that thought, if I'd paid 30 quid for it, I'd be like, it's not quite. 15 quid, I had no resentment for it, even though I didn't like it that much, you know?
I think we're at a time in sort of the industry as well where prices is such a hot button topic because of like DLC and stuff as well. Like everything changes all the time, and like how much you decide to spend on something can be relative to it's the collector's edition, it's the ultimate edition, it's fucking season pass, this, that, whatever.
And it used to be that you'd have like a few big releases every year and lots of people would get most of them or some of them. But now games come out constantly. And I kind of feel like it's a bit exhausting sometimes, especially, people listening to stuff like this where every week we're like recommending brand new games.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't have, sometimes it's people don't have the time to play everything, so they want recommendations of that. But a lot of people don't have the disposable income to be dropping like £40 on a game like more than 2 or 3 times a year.
That's another thing about the order as well, and the length of it. Like, I think it's kind of like when I read comic books, sometimes I go for something that is finite, that's not like an ongoing series, because I like having that sort of, the door's closed on that game now, I can start another one. Like, there's a time and a place for something like Skyrim that you can play endlessly, and that's great value for money, but then every so often I want a game that I can just go, that's done, now I can move on.
I think that's why I like this so much, because I've come off the back of like giant games that took just ages, and like Far Cry 4 just took me so long to do. Whereas this, I was just like, no, it was awesome. I sat down, I think I did in maybe like 2 sittings over 1 weekend. And it was like, yeah, it was done. And that's
Sometimes
out
that's
of it
great,
now.
yeah.
Like,
There's a lot to be said for finishing games.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't finish games anymore.
And now that you get fucking DLC and everything, that
Yeah,
you can't,
it's
like,
never
everything's,
ending.
I know.
Well, a lot of time you don't want to, or because it just is such a pain. I mean, I'm still haven't gone back to Shadows of Mordor, even though the fact that I haven't got to the bit where apparently it gets really good, because it just insists on being so bloody long. And Dying Light, again, I loved Dying Light, but Jesus Christ, that game can just stop being incessantly, like, it just throws so much stuff at you. It's like,
But
I don't
that's a
want to do
product
this.
of people complaining about length.
It is, and that is a thing, right? But I also think that there is this weird thing of like, at what point people cut off of being like, oh, that's too short, is very much up to debate. I think like 12 hours is fine. Some people think that's terrible, but I mean, but at the same time, I think if people do they've gone to the shop, they've bought the new thing on the shelf, and if they don't, I think people expect to get at least 10 hours of something.
They do, absolutely.
But that's an expectation which is completely based on the stupid prices, which I really hope that we start to just see that.
People were expecting, I think, optimistically, back before this generation of consoles launched, I remember people speculating that things are going to start going discless and brick and mortar would die. But I think maybe by the next generation, we might start seeing consoles acting a bit more like PC, where everything's digital and the pricing is skewed away from the £50 box
Steam
product
just
on
makes
game.
it look like, I mean, even not just Steam, like online distribution services just make it look like just chumps business. And the fact that we've had this reset cycle, oh, you've got to pay for the better graphics now, whereas the transition has just not existed on PC. It's just like, it's just carried on being PC games. And the prices are just really low.
that's a really good point,
And I think that's the problem now, is you kind of have to, I mean, I bought Destiny and that was like 45 quid, maybe 50 quid, because Activision are proper cheeky beggars. And that was a big, I mean, I'm not like on the poverty line or anything, but it was a big decision for me. I was like, do I really want to spend £50 on a game?
I had to spend £55 on Grand Theft Auto when it came out. And that was like, I was staring at that box for 10 minutes in the shop going,
I
do this?
this is like a lot of money to spend on a game.
I think your point is the one to end on, which is like,
Thank you.
if you end this entire podcast on this is the last episode, it's going out, Steve's done it. Whereas if you come away from it and you genuinely think you feel cheated, and you feel like it's short, not in length, but actually in
what it delivers.
What it delivers, then that's fair enough. But if you come out with if you just go in and going, oh, it's a short game, I hate it, then you're a dick.
Some of the best games are very short.
Exactly.
Indeed. A game that is endlessly not short, though, which we've been playing recently, Steve. Congratulations on winning round 1, by the way. You won 10 points.
Brilliant. Thank
Finishing
you.
that. On to round 2.
Sunless Sea.
Sunless Sea. Thank you for remembering the name of the game.
Yeah, so that's sort of like I guess you can call it, I hate calling things roguelikes when they're not roguelikes at all.
No.
But it is a game where you die, and dying is part of it, and you have a successor and they go on and you get a bit better every time you die and you play. Sunless Sea is a how would you best describe it?
It's weird. It's kind of almost like a text adventure.
Yeah.
In the fact that the majority of the game is reading.
Yes. So when I first played it, I didn't really know what to expect, and I came into it with the wrong attitude, so I didn't enjoy it straight away. There was a lot of reading to begin with, and I wanted to just get going with the mechanics of the game and see what was in there.
Yeah.
But I came back to it when I had a bit more spare time, and I was in a better mood to sit down and read what had been written.
Yeah.
And once you start to absorb the fiction of it, you start to enjoy that text adventure side of it. You have to sort of let the fiction come to you.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I found because I was chatting to Quinn's a lot about it, and he recommended it to me, and I was like, I wasn't quite feeling it for a while, and he was like, well, just if you keep playing, you'll have something, you'll have a thing that will, and it will grab you, and there'll be moments where it really will, and you'll have a moment that will be like, this is amazing.
Because it's really quite dense. I mean, you are a captain of a ship, on the undersea in Victorian London, in which London has been captured by bats and flown into the undersea, which is an underground ocean.
Awesome.
It's a follow up to an actual text
Fallen
adventure,
London.
Fallen London.
Yeah.
So you basically sail around the undersea, exploring these towns, gathering like stories from the people that you meet, and stories are like currency. So you go into ports and you can sell your stories to people for different things.
For money. Sometimes you can sell stories for money, or sometimes you can carry one type of story somewhere else, knowing that you'll be able to trade them for something else at a certain place.
And depending on the character that you choose at the very beginning, you have an ultimate objective. So my one that I always play is trying to find my father's bones and bring them back to London because he sailed away somewhere. So you have to basically get clues by going around to all of these ports, and you'll have your main story thread that you can follow. But as you're doing that, it's also like a resource management game. You have to constantly get supplies to keep your crew fed. You have to get fuel to keep your boat running, and at the same time, there are other. Everything seems to be a currency that you're amassing, and some of the currencies you don't want to amass, such as terror, which is this. It's a currency that slowly ticks up as you are out on the undersea, and if you go out into like the deepest, darkest undersea, your crew's terror just starts to go up and up and up and up, and they start going mad. And
they do.
They start eating each other. They start throwing each
Like
other
instantly.
overboard.
if they're hungry and terror is high, then cannibalism becomes a thing.
Yeah.
I've never had that myself, but I've had terror. The thing that's clever about terror is basically you have less terror if you keep your lights on your boat. But the problem is if you keep your lights on,
Do you use oil?
then you just attract attention.
Attracts enemies.
The weakest thing about the game by a mile is the combat.
Yeah.
And the combat is just rubbish. Really.
That came in quite late in the early access version. I would have preferred if they had maybe more tactical, thoughtful, turn-based combat, or at least something maybe that's built more into the text adventure engine. But as it stands, it's basically a maneuvering game where you have a firing arc and you're trying to keep the enemy in your firing arc.
And it becomes this fiddly thing of just tapping the buttons to keep like doing like almost like tiny donuts.
Yeah.
It becomes that thing of like you know when you're in the dodgems or whatever and like somebody's like trying to get away from you, you just keep following them behind, so they can't ever get away because you're just constantly following them. It's just that. But
That's how I played Black Flag.
Yeah, and it's weird because it's kind of mechanical, but it doesn't. It's not terribly satisfying. But the problem is the combat is also it's really easy to die in combat. It feels odd that they've added in. It feels like they kind of added in the combat because they felt that they had to. Yeah. Because actually the best way to play it quite by miles is just not fighting and just avoiding.
Yeah.
people.
Okay.
But there's a whole sort of there's a lot of features in there which are about combat and improving your boat and adding new guns to your boat and stuff. So I haven't really explored that.
This is the
part of
thing.
game
And
yet.
I mean, I don't know how you've got on with it, but I really like it. But it really feels like the game is almost at odds with itself. The game thrives and flies when you're doing the kind of the dense text stuff and you're reading. But then in between, you've got a lot of dead time where it feels like the only reason your boat goes so slowly is because if your boat went any quicker, you'd be able to go around the entire map in a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
So you're just going very slowly from A to B. And then all of the kind of trading stuff it doesn't really enrich the game very much. It often just makes sure that you can't go everywhere because you need resources. And I find the weird thing about it is the two games don't gel very well. And I find myself, when I'm doing all of the resource management stuff, so I can do my next big journey and get more story.
Yeah.
You get into the habit of just clicking without reading because you're like, click, 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 do all these things. And sometimes I find myself staying in that mindset. And then when I'm getting new story, I'm just almost like clicking through.
Yeah.
Because it's two different like styles of play.
Like you get to learn what certain paragraphs of text are trying to tell you. They're very,
I've
very
got the gist of it, man.
Yeah, they're very flavorful. Like it's really quite dense. You have to properly pay attention when you first play it. Like secrets and stories are different things, and like you trade those with different people. You get port reports that you sell back to the admiral in London and stuff like that. You see dialogue choices that you can't access, and it explains what you need to be able to access those. It's like, you need 7 Auburn scarves.
That's another confusing thing.
And 3, it's like, what do all of these things
Well, it's because
mean?
you realise that the whole way that Fallen London works is basically a kind of browser game with like buttons and options and stuff. And this is basically, I think, uses the exact same engine, but they've just kind of created the visual stuff and created the game around it. So it looks like it's not a browser game, but actually you can tell it is, because often it'll have this weird thing where sometimes when you hover over things, it gives you like tooltips that don't make sense because they're like clearly to do with variables and stuff. It's like if this variable equals, and it's you kind of go, I shouldn't be able to see that.
It feels like you're seeing the code of the game.
It does, and it kind of bothers me because
it reminds me a lot of what's that game that you made me play? Is it King of Dragon Valley?
King of Dragon Pass.
King of Dragon Pass.
And I bet you play it again. God damn it!
That game's really good, and that's the similar thing that happens in Sunless Sea, which is you make choices that lay dormant for like hours of play, and then they come back to haunt you later on. So things like something that happens quite early on, which most players will come across, is when you come back to London for the first time. You've run out of like fuel and stuff, and you're going to like stock up on fuel and buy some more stuff. You'll come across a shady man down the docks who's all like, "Oh, a mysterious benefactor would like to gift you 15 crates of fuel and 10 crates of supplies."
And that's like loads.
Yeah.
It's like that's
like
enough.
shit
Like
that'll
loads.
do you for a number of journeys. And you're like, "Well, what's the drawback here?" And you go, "No, there's no drawback at all. It's just this mysterious benefactor who would like you to go visit him on his island at some
Gotta be a catch
point."
there.
Yeah, he's like he might
somewhere.
want something from you at some point.
yeah.
Basically.
You just don't
So
know.
you can take. I took those supplies, and then later on, he comes back and he's all like, "Oh, our mysterious benefactor was wondering if you'd carry this crate of mysterious souls to this this far-flung place." And you can decline it. And he's like, "Feel free to decline. That's absolutely fine. But my master might be a little bit disappointed with you."
Yeah.
Some bad shit went down.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah,
though.
things can go bad.
Is it well written?
The writing
really
is
well written.
very good,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. Is actually the only frustration I have with it is it's a bit actually like LA Noire in the fact that I really like what they were trying to do with it. I wish they just focused on the cases and writing them better and having the interrogations be better and just fucked off the whole you can drive around LA thing.
Yeah.
Because in this it's like I can see I like the visual style and I like discovering new islands and the feeling sometimes of being like terrified that you're not going to make it back to port before you go mad. But at the same time, the whole sailing thing and especially the combat thing, it kind of just gets in the way, and the resource management kind of gets in the way of you just getting more stories. And often I find that the bit where I really got lost in it was an island called Nuncio, I think, which is like an island full of postmen. And everyone on the island works for the postal service for this island, and they all have outfits and I haven't finished that storyline because the thing it does, and this is kind of good but kind of annoying sometimes, is it'll be like you'll get to a point where you can't progress the story unless you've got certain items.
Okay.
And because the cargo space on your ship is quite limited, it means basically specifically getting that stuff and then coming back.
It's a pain in the ass.
It is a bit. And the problem I have with that is that each of the locations tends to have its own story, and they're often quite linear stories. And it means that if you die, you then, when you start again, even though it is kind of a roguelike,
It does. It says that it randomizes the map, but every time I've died and replayed, things are all roughly still in the same place.
It's
So
semi-random.
there's always near London. There's always like the town of I think it's called Venderbright, and it's like a town of basically near corpses where people, because nobody dies on the undersea.
Yeah.
Everyone just goes to this town where everyone is effectively dead, but they're all like walking corpses.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I've exhausted most of the stories there because it's the first town that I always go to. There's swathes of the map that I still haven't seen yet.
What I can't work out is it's like, I think there is a random element of sometimes like you go to a place and it's just different than usual, but they seem like a bit of a kind of like lucky rolls of the dice where like you're like, oh, this is rare that I got a different story bit. And the problem I have is sometimes because when you die, you think, and then it means you do have to do the skip thing of skipping through to get back to the bit of the story that you want to get to finish that story. I think it's just odd because actually the thing is I died like a couple of times in a few hours and then I actually got better at the game.
Yeah.
Realised that the answer to combat is just run the hell away, don't go near anything.
Yeah.
And in my third game, I haven't died and it's unlikely I will because I'm being very careful. And, it's weird it's a roguelike because it doesn't suit. Roguelikes and stories don't work unless you carry on the story from where you left off.
That's the thing that it's sort of that sounds really annoying that you have to then go, oh, I really like that story. Now I have to go back and get to that point.
And it's also because it is slightly randomized as well. Like you'll go to Venderbright and you'll see the same script that you saw before, but you can't just click through it to get to the bit you want to get to because sometimes it might pop up and show you something new. So you sort of have to scan every paragraph that you've read before and go, okay, it's this. Okay, it's this. Okay, oh, hang on. No, that's new.
I don't know if that's really clever or really annoying.
I would find that tedious. I feel
Yeah.
like.
It's not perfect. I mean, there's lots about it. It's really, really good, but it just
I
feels...
would recommend it. I
Yes.
think it's really
Yeah.
good fun.
yeah, it's really cool. And like, I just think it's one of those odd things where I feel like the resource management doesn't gel so well with the stories. And it annoys me that with all the writing, you've got this... I mean, I play it on a big telly that you can see. And it's always like all the text takes up like a tiny bit of it. And you can't make it bigger. You can't be
You're
like...
focusing like a tiny part of your screen.
I'm constantly looking. I mean, I've got a 32-inch telly here, and I'm constantly looking at a size which is like probably the size of a,
like a post-it note.
size
on
of a
the screen.
3DS game. Yeah. So imagine a 3DS game case on a 32-inch telly, and that's the bit of the screen that you spend the most time looking at.
Tiny.
For the
can't-
listeners at home,
So
Matt
what's
is
the
holding
rest of
up
it?
a DS case.
know.
Ghost Trick.
I bought
Fantasy
Ghost
Tech.
Trick.
Ghost Trick,
Oh,
which
amazing.
Ghost
Yeah.
Trick.
I
I love
recommended
Ghost
it.
Trick.
Last time I was on the
It's
podcast.
So much
really-
fun.
Yeah.
Have you played it?
No.
Oh, man, you're
Missile
gonna
is
fucking
like
love
the
that.
cutest
Yeah.
dog.
Well, that's
Isn't it?
exactly what Steve was talking
Yeah.
about, and so I bought it. I haven't played it yet, but
Absolutely
I will do.
amazing game.
Yeah.
I might borrow it after you, actually.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, Sunless Sea is really cool, and it's like it's amazing when you've got the time for it. But yeah, you really need to go into it with like a weird. It's so frustrating because it's this thing of like it wants you to like be in this really relaxed zone where you want to completely immerse yourself into it. But then when you're on an island or when you're going through a story and when you have these nice contained bits of story where it's like you just keep digging and getting more and more story and it's really exciting and interesting, it's awesome.
Yeah.
But then in between, like there's not a lot to do when you're just on the sea.
Yeah,
And it's actually the sort of thing where the problem is I start playing my 3DS or something when I'm doing it because all you need to do is just keep an eye out. And you're like, oh, jellyfish, need to,
Sending
pirates.
your Z-Bat out to look for new islands.
Yeah, but often when you're just going back a long way, it takes like 20 minutes and
Yeah.
Is it just on PC?
Yeah.
Is there any reason that it should just be on PC?
I could see it being an iPad.
It could be
thing.
an iPad game.
Sounds like it would be awesome on iPad.
I think it would be, yeah.
I think it's a game that we talk about having to come at it with the right attitude and mood. It's if you feel like reading a book, play Sunless Sea. If you feel like playing a game, maybe wait until you feel like reading a book.
Yeah. It's one of those weird things though where the game bits annoy me a bit because I just want to read.
Yeah.
I tell you what does it better, and it's quite similar, it's 80 Days, which we talked on here a lot.
Yeah, that's a great comparison.
But
yeah.
80 Days is just so much smarter in the fact that it has all this game mechanic stuff, but it's so simple that it never gets in the way of other stuff.
Yeah, and the writing in that is very short.
Yeah.
So you don't have those things where you're being tricked by a paragraph that you've already read and trying to look for the things that you haven't seen before.
Yeah.
It does actually, the way it presents the text in Sunless Sea is a bit odd sometimes. Sometimes it refreshes it, and sometimes you have to, I don't know.
You do, yeah. You have to learn how to read its text as well because
strange.
Yeah,
It sounds like, cause it reminded me, when you're talking about it, it sounds like the Simogo game that I was talking about before, Sailor's Dream, I think it is. Like,
Yeah.
whereas that is perfect because that's all islands and that as well, but it's just like, okay, now you've done this bit, you can unlock this island. And it's very just like, it focuses on the actual text and the actual story rather than then introducing like these weird game bits into it.
Game stuff is pretty light. It just sort of, I don't know. I mean, what I'd say actually is when Steve started playing it before I did, and I was talking to Steve about it, and he was like, "Oh, I think I get the hang of it. I think what you have to do is to keep like circling around to local ports, getting the port reports, and then coming home." Which is sort of true to begin with. I recommend do that the first time you play because you've got to learn how the game works vaguely. But as soon as you get the basics, a better way to do it is actually to really strike out in one direction and stop on everywhere you find along the way, but don't feel afraid to like not
going.
go
to venture out.
Yeah.
because the problem is otherwise you end up just doing tiny little
Same
circles
thing all the time, yeah.
and it's when you go out further away because there are some interesting characters in the local places and interesting things, but it's when you start finding islands further away and locations further away, and actually that's when the game becomes breathtaking, is when you some of the locations like you've been to the Frost place, the big Frost like building, and everyone's terrified of it. And the game even says like you've got the option to go into it if you've got the right resources, and it's like you should not go into this place unless you need to, unless you have a reason to.
Yeah.
And it's this idea of being like you don't know what's in there, but it's I don't know. It manages to really conjure up a very terrifying sense of place sometimes.
Yeah.
It's very, very cool. Anyway, what have you been playing, Aoife?
I've been playing Resident Evil Revelations 2.
You sound thrilled about that.
Yeah, no, well, actually, no, it's just because you guys have been like talking so like thrillingly about Sunless Sea. But no, I'm surprised at how much I like Revelations 2. I was a big Resi fan back in the day, and then
Did you play Revelations 1?
yes, I did.
I absolutely
Did you
loved
play it
it.
on
That's the
3DS or
thing,
did you
yeah.
play it on when it got re-released?
I started it on 3DS, but then my hands just like became sort of claw.
I thought it was
like
perfect on
appendage.
3DS.
I liked it, but I played it properly again, like on the thing.
Don't say properly.
Well, okay, I played it. I didn't.
A lot of 3DS people.
I'm not a big fan of handheld just because I like to be seated.
You've
in a
got
big
giant
screen.
hands.
Fake gamer Gav. Fake gamer Gav.
I don't know. That's just my personal preference. I have like a 3DS and I have like a Vita, but I just don't use them ever.
You were singing the praises of handheld gaming on Video Game Nation, Aoife.
No, I think you'll find that wasn't.
For the handheld episode that you
For
were
the
in.
handheld episode, I did say, I don't usually play them, but they're whatever. But no, Resi Revelations 1, I think, was like, it was proper a return to form for the series. I think a lot of people felt, because it was kind of like old school.
Yeah.
It was a bit, because I never really played it, but I always intended to. So that counts for something, goddammit. It reminded me of like, wasn't it a bit like what they did? Because Resi 4 just had a great system, and then it had that. You completed the game and thought, "Wow, whiz bam, what a rocket!" And then you afterwards, like it was like Mercenaries mode. And you're like, "What's Mercenaries mode?" And you were like, "Oh shit, this is really cool." And mad, wasn't it a bit like more inspired by Mercenaries mode?
For the 3DS version, definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, Revelations 1 and 2 have their own version of Mercenaries,
raid
the raid
mode,
mode,
Which is awesome.
So
it
good.
was actually really fun. I didn't expect to like it at all. Like I mean, I just never played Resi for action. Like I don't think a lot of people did. I mean, certainly not people who grew up with the older Resi games. But
That's all you got these days, so you know.
well, that's it, right? But Resi 2 kind of the thing I never liked about Resi 1 was kind of the secondary characters. Like I love Jill Valentine. She's my homegirl. Like I'll always love her. But the one always kind of roped you with really sort of hateful side characters. Like what did you call the one that Chris had? Who was she was like, oh, me and my sweet
Oh
ass.
yeah. She's like the medic girl.
Yeah, and she wore like this ridiculous sniper outfit, and she was just really annoying. But Revelations 2 is like Claire Redfield's back, like after years and years, and Barry Burton, like fucking Barry Burton, like
It's
he's
a really good cast, isn't it?
It's so good, and but the surprising thing is that the secondary characters are also quite good. So Moira is Barry's daughter, who is paired with Claire, and she's just like this really foul-mouthed, sort of very, I don't know, sort of punk rock kind of teenager. And then Barry has like a little girl who doesn't have, neither of them use guns. Moira, just for moral reasons, I guess, she just uses a flashlight, and she has a crowbar that she gets. And the little girl...
Still, you can really fuck somebody up with a flashlight.
I'd probably put my morals to one side if I was on a zombie infested.
Well, that's the thing. Well, so it hasn't explained yet why, but she just refuses. I mean, Claire alludes to I forgot, like that happened. She was like, I don't touch guns since the incident.
She's like Doctor Who.
So something happened to put her off guns. You don't know what it is, but so she has this flashlight that she uses, and the little girl points.
That's so funny.
You were talking about it.
Yeah. So she's in a nighting, like a
little nighty. She's so
weird.
creepy. She's so creepy.
She's like something out of The Ring.
She is, and I just have this feeling that she's a figment of Barry's imagination or whatever.
But she can point at objects.
Yes,
that Barry can't see.
And Moira has the same thing, that she can shine a flashlight and sort of turn up objects.
I really like that mechanic,
which is really
good,
great. Yeah, because it actually. It sort of encourages you to switch where ordinarily I wouldn't bother. I would just stick with Claire. But
in co-op, 2 players control those 2 characters. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
Don't want to be fucking Torch Girl, do you?
No, all pointing girl.
No, but to be honest,
it's like a little supports little character.
It
I like
supports,
it.
but actually it works much better in where it wouldn't work in other games. That now you can evade. They've kind of refined their evade function, whereas you can sort of shine the light at someone, and that actually stops them long enough that Claire can then run up and melee them.
That's quite cool.
But also, so you can get, I mean, in any other Resi game, you'd be backed into a corner, you'd be fucked, basically.
Yeah.
But now that you have the evade function, you're actually luring them away, whereas you can escape, and they can actually just be firing shotgun shells into the back. But you won't get completely pummeled if you're fast enough.
That's the thing with
Resi.
Resi 6, I remember, like, they added, like, tons of moves and stuff. Like, there was actually the amount of maneuverability.
Oh, yeah, where you could, like, slide on your back.
You could do, like,
and all
loads
this
of
mad
awesome stuff. I mean, the rest of the game was kind of a bit pap. But, I mean, like, have they kept in a lot of mad stuff like that? Or they...
Not really. I mean, you can still move and shoot, but you can't do can't do all the crazy stuff that Leon did.
But it's like purposely like stripped back, isn't it?
Yeah,
like,
which works perfectly well. It's actually, and even in the simplest terms, that there's a lot more darkness, obviously, because like light and sort of usage of it is bigger mechanic in this one, but it just goes so far to sort of to reinvigorating the atmosphere of the older Resi games that, you know, you actually, there were a few points that I actually felt a little bit scared and a little bit like, especially when one character and you, because I was playing it on my own, I wasn't playing co-op.
Yeah.
So when you're forced to switch to the vulnerable character, let's say, and you have to separate from the character who essentially has all the firepower, it's actually quite scary.
Yeah.
But it's just sorry.
So when I was playing as a little girl, I don't know because you played a bit more than me.
Yeah.
Barry wasn't shooting his gun.
He has like, oh no, so. Yeah, actually, that's a good point.
Yeah, I was running around pointing at zombies, going, Barry, there's a zombie right there. Baz, can you sort this one out?
That's a really good point because actually, so I've completed the first episode, and when I play as Claire and Moira, and I'm Moira, Claire shoots at whatever I'm pointing at. But when I was Barry and Natalia, Barry didn't.
Right.
So that I don't know whether that's a good point. Maybe that's the AI
Lazy.
or
Check out the Barry AI camera.
yeah. And he has shitloads of guns. He
starts out with like an assault rifle
and an assault rifle.
It's great because in a Resi game I always think, right, you've
Magnum
you've
is the
seen
end.
Magnum is the last thing. You never use the Magnum until you have to.
It's like, you've seen enough zombies now. You're experienced at this. You should be showing up armed to the teeth.
Yeah.
And Barry does in this game.
Yeah, there's no
It's really
excuses.
good.
Just but I'm like, just bought this gun. Shit.
Yeah, like in Resi 1, like Chris starts out with a knife.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, mate. You're meant to be part of this special forces group, and you don't even
Even
have
if you
a gun.
didn't know what situation you were walking into, like
Yeah.
him turn out with a knife, like he's got to get stripped down. His boss would be like, "You fucked up. I told you to bring your bag.
Yeah.
And you haven't done it again."
Yeah, you can do it in your pants.
You've got all this really expensive equipment, and you just keep leaving it.
Yeah, like I generally felt scared. Like when you're saying like being scared by
Yeah.
Resi Game the first time. Like when I played Revelations for the first time on the 3DS, where it's meant to be played.
Yeah.
Like I was genuinely scared because of that. The handheld thing is so immediate. It's right there, and it draws you in a little bit more. And I think this is why I never understood why it was why Revelations was remade. Obviously, because nobody bought it on 3DS, but because. That was a perfect 3DS game. It was like it did it like chapters, because that's how you want to play 3DS games. You want to sit down
Right.
you want to sit down for 40 minutes, 45 minutes on the tube for your commute, and then you want to go right. That's the end of that chapter, and then when you go back, it says previously on Resident Evil, and you go back and play the chapter. Like you reviewed it for Fish and Nintendo, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think the two of us at the same time were just like, it's perfect. It's a perfect 3DS game, and then
You're totally right, and they've retained. The strange thing is they've retained that episodic structure for the sequel, which is
They
on
made it
consoles,
actually episodic this time.
which just doesn't work. I don't think. I mean, but
I think they've misunderstood what was good about the game.
No, I mean, like the aesthetic of it is, you know, there is you've got a campaign is divided into, you know, Claire and Barry, and each episode will start with Claire and then finish with Barry, and there's a little bit of an overlap in where they are, but Claire chronologically, Claire and Moira come before Barry and Natalia, so you can kind of intersect and see what the other team has done before you and all this. But other than that, it's just like I don't see why they would withhold content.
I've got to be honest. Like I've always noticed, and this is like from 3 or 4 years ago, Capcom have a weird habit of whenever there's a thing, like whenever there's a new thing, like a monetization or a model or whatever, they always end up like
doing it,
and like at a weird time, like weirdly a bit later than you would think.
And always with like the wrong.
Yeah,
game.
they don't do it right.
Yeah.
They just do it, like because Dragon's Dogma
it must be like a marketing thing.
It must
Yeah.
be because Dragon's Dogma had microtransactions in it, and I remember it being just like they weren't really. They were kind of pointless. Like it was this weird thing of being like you could do it, but. Why would you? Why are they in here? It was just this odd thing of
Sounds
being
exactly the
like,
same, yeah.
It honestly seems like somebody just says, "Hey,
Telltale's big now.
Telltale's big.
Yeah.
In the next one, you need to make it episodic."
Yeah,
But
it's like we sort of already did with the chapter thing. Excellent.
No.
Do it again.
But the thing is, so like with Telltale, like that was always that's been their thing for a long time. But with Revelations 2, the content's already there. They've got it stuck to like a weekly schedule. Like the episodes
You can't
are
develop
already,
it in a week, can you?
Yeah.
No, exactly. And the episodes are already there. So I don't know why they would be like, well, you could play this, but we're not going to give it to you for another week.
like
Because you're
they
going to
were
be really
saying-
like, are you going to be hungrier for it? Like, I don't know. Like, do they
They were
think...
saying when I interviewed them, they were like, "Oh yeah, people might like pick up episode 1 and then not play episode 2, and just like come back in at episode 4." It's like, who
Why?
plays plays games like that?
Who watches telly like that? Because they're obviously like adopting like a telly model for it.
Yeah.
Nobody watches episode 1 or something going, that was alright.
Sounds to me.
Maybe I'll watch episode 6.
It's going in the
See if
exact
that's all
opposite
right.
direction of what TV is
Yeah.
doing.
Like
Netflix releases like
Is it like in 2 days' time?
Yeah.
The whole season of House of Cards is coming out.
Exactly.
I
yeah.
put money on what happened is somebody up top said it had to be done because they thought it was a cool idea,
Yeah.
and now
Yeah.
everybody down
Is beholden
is
to
trying
that.
to come up with ideas why it's cool. Like
Yeah.
who would anyone who gives that as a reason why it's cool? Hey, why not just skip episodes 2 and 3 and go
Yeah.
straight to 4? Why not
the thing
play
really-
the finale first? It's like
Yeah.
they're grasping at fucking straws.
Yeah, the thing that really annoys me as well is I was like, it was like I loved Revelations for the fact that it was like a perfect commute game where I could play 45 minutes and then I could do a chapter and then maybe I play a chapter on the way home or something like that. So I thought, okay, it must be releasing on the Vita. I'll just play the Vita version. That's fine. No. They're only releasing the Vita version when every single episode has been released.
Yeah.
So it's like, what the fuck is that about?
that is fucking mental.
It's like they're trying to fuck me up, like personally.
You're right though, because on the Vita it would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like every week, get a new thing Monday morning. Brilliant.
To go back to why the game's actually good.
Yeah.
Aoife, you mentioned an interesting thing about how Revelations sort of went back to the Resi roots, and one thing I loved about Revelations was it's the first time in a long time with a Resi game where the location is one of the biggest things again. So Resi 1 was the mansion, Resi 2 was the police station. After that, it's all
They've
sort
been in like
of
facilities and stuff.
yeah, it all sort of branched out into weird things. And when Revelations came out, it was set on a ship. It was
So
like,
good, yeah.
Such an atmospheric ship as
yeah,
well.
yeah. So Revelations 2.
2 is kind of similar. I mean, it's still very early days, but the whole premise is Moira and Clara work for TerraSave, which is kind of like the new BSAA or whatever. But they get kidnapped and they end up on this sort of remote island. Sort of rundown military facility that seems completely abandoned, but you get the sense from picking up files and stuff, because it's a Resident Evil game, you should always read the files.
Yeah.
That some weird experiments have happened. But the really interesting thing I find about this game, and I've spoken to a friend Neil who works at Capcom who says like nobody else has really picked up on this or talked about it, but they seem to really want to force Kafka down your throat when you're playing it. Like you pick up all these notes like in sort of
I noticed the
allusions to
Kafka stuff.
Which is kind of like, yeah, you have like all these sort of little excerpts from in the penal colony and the trial and like the first insects or the first sort of enemies you run into are these big insects, like Gregor
cockroaches,
yeah. And then so the sort of big bad of it is this mysterious person who's talking to you over these little bracelets that you wear, and they keep quoting all this stuff at you, and I think it's just it's very atmospheric. It's kind of like, it's a little bit
Do you reckon someone at Capcom has just read Franz Kafka?
I think they've just this totally works. This so works. Like
it does feel a bit on the nose sometimes.
It's a little bit too on the nose, but you know what? It's like I would much prefer that than playing as fucking Alpha Bravo fucking.
That's
team,
why it's episodic. So every week after you finish the latest bit, you can go and chat
You can go
Kafka
read,
down the pub.
Yeah. One of the main guys who's making the game though made Operation Raccoon City, because I remember like when I spoke to him, he was like, well, I was talking to him about what his
that
favorite.
Matt?
It was the American one.
Yeah.
He was like, because he was. I was saying, oh, what are some of your, you guys haven't worked on that many Resident Evil games. What are some of your favorite things? And obviously everyone was like, oh, Resi 1, Resi 2. This guy was like, oh, I really like Operation Raccoon City, the first Resi that I worked on. I was like, yeah,
Wow.
mate, chill out. like it was balls, mate. You know that.
It was. But the other interesting thing about this game is it was, so obviously Resident Evil has like a bit of a reputation for really shitty dialogue, which is kind of like why everyone
And
loves
Barry
it.
especially.
Barry
Yeah,
especially.
yeah.
This one was actually mostly they just they just take the dialogue verbatim and translate it from Japanese to English. Whereas this, they actually fully rewrote it in English.
Oh, that's a shame.
Well, it's good and it's bad. because you
Revelations,
don't-
the first
you
one was
don't-
amazing.
Yeah, you don't get any of that clunky sort of, the Jill sandwich. You don't get any of that stuff. But then
want that,
Moira as a character in particular really benefits from it because she's just got such a fucking foul mouth. Like she's
good.
just like a moist bag of dicks, like coming out with all these, which are really funny. And apparently the US that kind of hasn't gone down as well as here
Oh,
because
really?
of the cultural difference. Yeah, they don't really like that sort of offhanded swearing. But I think it.
Yeah, and they don't actually. It's funny.
Not at
I've
all.
noticed that mainly in podcasting. I try not to swear as much these days, mainly for lots of reasons. But back in the day, people used to be like, occasionally get people being like, "Whoa, like,
Well, you leave it out.
like, why are you swearing
Really?
so much?" Yeah, swearing is a much bigger deal in America.
Yeah.
And it's a really big problem with Scottish people because, specifically because of the C word, which got dropped a ton of times when it was me, you, and Jim last time. And I always get a bit awkward about it because I know
Because that's so much more offensive in America.
In America, it means like
Highly sexist.
it's one of the most offensive, sexist things you can say. Whereas if you
It's
Whereas I love that
gender
word.
neutral.
Yeah.
isn't it?
over here, it's gender neutral.
Or
and
even
if you're in Scotland,
a term of endearment.
it just means
Yeah,
a person.
definitely,
Like
yeah.
Scotland, it is just
It means
literally-
dad.
It means anything. Like it's so, but you find it funny how like Hedgie was like, you're like, what? What's wrong?
In Revelations, there was a lot of just really odd lines. Like, wasn't it like there's an amazing one that we loved where it was just like,
Yeah.
oh, this new PC is tits.
Yeah, it was something like you meant to say the shit, but
Yeah,
you said it's a shit.
It almost kind of, it doesn't work as well with Barry because that's why he's such a cult figure. Like
Yeah.
some of his fucking, some of
He
his
was the guy
dialogue
who
is
said,
so good.
"I'll give this lockpick to you, Jill."
Yeah, the master of unlocking.
Yeah.
And there is some shade thrown at like the classic Resi dialogue. Like at one point in the first episode, like Claire goes, "I was almost a Claire sandwich." Like she may as well
Nice.
wink at the camera.
Yeah.
But you know, it's the kind of thing that
So
I
when's
still
it
enjoy.
all out?
So the first episode is out now. It was
Yeah.
out today, and then theoretically every episode will be out every week.
We haven't mentioned the raid mode, which is like my favorite
Really good,
bit
yeah.
about
Yeah.
it. They're like really short runs, like 5-minute runs through loads of classic Resi
Yes.
settings as
Yeah.
well.
Well, so there's areas from this game. There's areas from Revelations 1 and weirdly Resi 6, which was kind of.
I
like
thought
a bit
I was
bizarre.
playing a lot
The
of
fan
Resi 4
favourite.
as well.
There
There's a
might well
village
have
from Resi
been.
4. But it's a game. It's you have a character that levels up as you play. You get experience from killing these zombies.
And you open chests
You
where
open
they're like
chests.
records where you put into a jukebox and you can unlock like new guns and stuff. The thing I loved about it is it really cranks up the kind of really cheesy J-pop, like when you're running around these
Does
stages.
the music
I love
is
it.
so
It's
good?
so good.
Yeah.
That sounds great. That
It's
sounds
like,
really
It's
good.
like someone looked at the mechanics of Resi
Yeah.
and just go, "This is really good fun."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can just make a new little game with this where you're just running around.
I
kicking
love
zombies in the face.
Resi 5 because I played it with my my old housemate as an action game co-op, and it was complete bollocks. And at first I kind of thought, oh, this is a bit offensive with some of the stuff.
Yeah.
Then I realised it was just like one of the most ignorant things I've ever played, but in a way that was just like, oh, I loved it when you were in Africa and you went underground and found Aztec ruins. It's just like, they don't. That's another
They have no
continent.
idea.
Oh, it's all black people, isn't it?
But it was a bit like, guys, this is weak.
Yeah.
But it was a fun action game, and it was just stupid nonsense.
The thing is that's kind of not really given the credit it deserves is Revelations 2 at least. The gunplay is really satisfying. Like getting headshots in that game is like, especially as Barry, because he's got some great guns.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
he just got like a headshot. You really, it's meaty. You know, you just
Yeah.
hear the.
Especially in raid mode as well, because damage numbers ping off
Oh, yes.
enemies.
So
and
good.
so
it's
satisfying.
like Borderlands. Everyone's got health
Yeah.
bars above them. You get a headshot, especially if you get a new gun, which is like so much better than what you've got. You're doing like
Yeah.
800 damage per headshot with an assault rifle. Then you get a Magnum and you attach like a fire.
Oh, yeah, the
addition to it,
incendiary,
which
like,
like
sort of
sets
bullets and
some
stuff.
zombies on fire, and you're headshotting them. You're getting like 2,800 damage. Like this is
Yeah.
amazing.
It's so mindless,
That's so
but
many
it's so
numbers.
so many numbers.
Guys, I only just stopped playing Destiny already. Get me in trouble here.
Yeah.
All right, let's do some questions. That sounds good though, Resi, actually.
It is, yeah.
I think it's the sort of thing I might as well wait until it's...
A full package. That's
Yeah,
the thing.
definitely.
I
And
don't,
you can
yeah.
play on your VR.
Because even with like the raid mode, they're adding more to the raid mode with every episode as well.
They are,
so-
and you can actually, because every episode adds extra characters to it, which is
Really?
kind of cool. But yeah, I just
I don't think this will be a terribly divisive question, but we'll find out. Tom Curtis says, would you rather have delayed release dates or releasing broken games?
delayed release
Yeah.
dates.
Yeah,
Release
delayed
dates,
release dates. I don't know why anyone would want broken games.
Who would want a broken game?
Miyamoto-
I kind of like the YouTube clips of really broken
Yeah.
games, though. That's always
Oh yeah,
amusing.
yeah. I mean, Miyamoto had like that famous quote when he was delaying Ocarina of Time for like, was that delayed for like a year and a half or
Ages, yeah.
something? And he was like, well, I'd rather like release a game late. Like in 20 years' time, no one's going to remember that Ocarina of Time was a year and a half late.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah.
they will remember if it's buggy and shit.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, that's
And I
very
think, so not Phil Fish, the indie developer.
The indie developer.
indie
That
developer.
one indie
the other one,
developer.
the other one. Not Phil Fish, the other one.
Which
Yeah.
one?
Again, he was. There was a headline about his game being The Witness.
Jonathan
Dre-
Blow.
Jonathan Blow,
Blow,
yeah.
yeah. he's delayed that, and again he said the same thing. It's like in 10 years' time, people aren't going to remember the fact that I delayed it slightly. They will remember if it's buggy and
I think with Assassin's Creed and stuff like that is because that team has then got to go on to make the next Far Cry. It's just like, look, you've got this amount of time to make it, then you've got to be on Far Cry in March. So you better you just got to get it done. And whatever happens then, we'll put the patch team on there, and you're making Far Cry.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Ubisoft have that factory of games developers.
Exactly,
they've got the scheduling nailed down for all of their stuff. So.
Just the products don't quite work. I mean, they've got a weird infrastructure at Ubisoft. I think it seems like they often have lots of studios around the globe combining stuff. And
I reckon they've got a giant battery farm on Jersey. And they're just churning out these games.
Well, they've always been really adamant that this system of having loads of studios and loads of play locations around the world making one thing works, and yet I don't think it does, because they keep releasing stuff which is
well, it's been a while since
work.
There's been a new thing about the way crunch works as well. Is they release a game and they sack everyone. And Ubisoft, there hasn't been a high profile Ubisoft sacking in a long time.
Because they've got a constant rotation.
Yeah, that's very true.
Whatever you think about Call of Duty, I really like the way that Activision do it, where they got Treyarch and what's the other one?
Oh, Sledgehammer.
Where they have it seems like there's a really nice little
Infinity
sort of verses
Ward as well,
with
there's
Infinity War.
three of them.
So they're just I've
got to say, actually,
you guys are against each other to make the
seems
best Call of Duty game.
It seems like people are now that the hate train has moved over towards Ubisoft and EA a bit. But people still rag on Activision a lot, just us being Activision is shit. And it's you know what, last year especially, the two games I played, which were just immediately very well made, really, both Activision, Destiny was just they weren't really. I mean, there were bugs in it, but it was just so smooth. And the Call of Duty, the campaign was kind of rubbish, but you play it online, the amount of stuff to do in that game, and how immediately it was you know what, there's a lot to be said for games that you could just put in your console, and it just works, and it works really well. And Activision, they're good at that. They're really good at that. Fair play. They must be you've got to have stuff finished 4 months in advance. I have no idea how they do it. But
this is the only podcast that simultaneously says Jonathan Blow is awesome and Activision at the same time, probably.
I mean, their campaign in Call of Duty is just rubbish. And I'm fascinated by that, because it's just Call of Duty now is just. It's useless because it's so big that it can't do anything.
No, they've got to serve the fan base that they've got now.
Yeah.
But the thing that fascinates me more than anything, and I kind of want to make a video about it, but it requires actual loads of research and time. I will do it at some point, but I really want to do about the politics of Call of Duty and how they've shifted over the years. And now it's just become this hugely apolitical thing, and it's both a weird sign of the times, but also just a sign of where the game's at. But the last 2 or 3 Call of Duty games have all had plot lines where it seems like they're saying something quite big about America or or about the military complex and the industrialization of it, and then just at the last minute just goes no. It's this weird thing if it pulls all of its punches, and it's what do you stand for? And it's just a shame because some of the old Call of Duties used to actually have points, you know. Yeah. Even in the early ones, it was war's shit, isn't it? Anyway, Ed Stern asks if you could go back in time and talk to young you, what games would you make you play?
That's such a good question.
That's a good question, isn't it?
I don't know.
And this is tricky because does it mean games that were available when you were young that you didn't know about?
I think it does.
Or does it mean you've got a time machine?
Phantasy Star Online. Yeah. I never played that when it was around. I wish I had a Dreamcast with a modem, and I could experience that.
I had a Dreamcast.
But no,
you did miss out.
Yeah,
I used to play that with Sean Bell of Midnight Resistance. Used to stay up all night playing it. Get your keyboard. You sit up in bed, get your keyboard on your lap on top of your duvet, and then you got really good because you had to use a proper keyboard to type.
Yeah.
I kind of developed the skill of being able to play the game whilst typing.
Nice.
Which is I'm quite amazed by that.
Jeez.
But it was 56k as well, which meant you couldn't play it in the day or the evening because your parents would get fucked off about you taking the phone line.
Yeah.
So, and splitters and stuff were really expensive back then. So I
always
had 2 phone lines, I think.
I always had to wait for my parents to go out to the pub before I could play any online games. I'd play Muds. Remember Muds?
Yeah, multi-user dungeons.
Multi-user dungeons.
Never get my head around them.
Yeah, Mudgeek was the one I used to play. That was amazing. It is so vivid in my head, but it's probably an atrocious thing, an atrocious game.
I don't know what I would tell myself to play. I'd probably tell myself to stop like playing Worms so much or something like that. Or like I used to play like Motorhead on the PC all the time.
There
Like
must
I was
have been something
obsessed
though,
with
that
that.
you discovered like later and thought, oh, I wish I'd done that.
But I don't know. I kind of like, I kind of liked everything that I didn't get to when I was younger. Discovering it a bit later when I was a little bit smarter, maybe. Or
I don't think
a little
there's
bit
anything
being
that...
able to appreciate it a bit
Yeah,
more.
I don't think so.
I was like, I was Nintendo and PC only until I was like maybe 15 or something.
Yeah.
And that was when I got like my brother's PlayStation. And I just loved playing catch up after that. And then, it got to a point now where too many things to play.
Yeah,
But
no, I don't think there's anything that
I'd probably play World of Warcraft less. Like
yeah,
I spent like good 6-7 years of my life on that game.
I think it's good to have experienced a World of Warcraft addiction.
Absolutely, but
Character building.
it is character building. But
Once you've got past it.
Yeah, I've got my badge, my 5-year badge,
yeah.
coin that I carry over.
I probably would have stopped after Wrath of the Lich King. That's probably where I would have.
Yeah, I lost a lot of time to it as well, but I think it's hard because it's kind of a console. I think the difficulty was like, again, coming back to like disposable income really, forget about a lot of kids like that have money that you couldn't, now I've got the luxury of having all of the consoles I want. I haven't got an Xbox One, but I've got real interest in it.
But you've got all the consoles you
Of
want.
course, and that's not really that much of a problem. Whereas, when you were a kid, I had the N64 and I couldn't
I
have
would
a
blow my
PlayStation.
younger self. If I could go back in time and go, I've got disposable income, I can buy any game I want right now. I can buy all the consoles. I have all the consoles.
Blow your
and I've got
mind.
all this spare time. And I don't play games as often as you play games right now.
That's true though.
When you said blow, I thought you literally
Yeah,
going to go back and suck
that's why I
your
had to
younger self
clarify it for him. You would blow your mind, yeah.
I'll blow my mind. Maybe my penis.
I don't know. I like because I had.
Is that a paradox?
Is it a time paradox if you do that? I don't know.
Probably not. Nothing will
yourself up.
nothing will really happen, will it? So
Oh, it's wrong. No, because it's true. I had an N64 and I owned maybe like 3 games for it. But I made those.
they were
I made
damn
those
expensive.
Yeah.
They were
I
like
know.
60 quid.
Didn't you cherish those
I
games?
really fucking did.
You didn't. I think
I
that's
still
why,
did.
if I could, I didn't have a PlayStation, but I think what I would have liked to have had was Vagrant Story, just because
That was awesome, though, wasn't
it was really good, and I played it on the PSP. Not legally. Years later, and it was like I couldn't.
really
The amount of it required of you, like in terms of like real commitment. I couldn't quite do it as an adult, but I was aware that it was really good, and I think if I'd had it as a kid, it would have been one of those things that I would have cherished and become obsessed with. And
I was
it,
I was super lucky. I had a guy who lived behind our house who pirated games, and it was like it was just amazing. Like I think I paid him 45 quid to chip my PlayStation 1, and then
I had PlayStation 1s.
And
Everyone
then
actually
like-
plays one.
Yeah, I did.
and then
Did a bit of blue tack and a biro.
good.
The Pyro
Proper.
bit. Yeah.
I didn't have,
Yeah.
I didn't
You
have to
had
do
to
that because it was
pop the
chipped.
lids
I didn't have to do
and
that. It was all
yeah,
chipped, so it was
nice.
amazing. But sometimes you had to play them like NTSC versions. So you like I think I played like Parasite Eve in black and white.
Oh,
And
man.
years later, I played it in color. I was like, this is shit. When I was playing in black and white, I was like, this is so
Shit.
atmospheric.
The one thing I would do actually is tell my younger self to fucking appreciate summer holidays. Like, because imagine having that much time to play.
Be a teacher.
game in
That's why
holiday.
all my friends have become teachers. I think
so they can play games all summer.
Like to like have that amount of free time to invest in a game now is like completely like.
Well, actually, that brings us on to another question, which is a good one. Jason Hall asks, I love that we get questions now which are actually from the perspective of adults and not just children. If you had a week off from all responsibilities starting now, which games would you play? This is
Such a good
shamelessly stolen from
question.
BitSocket, which I've plugged as a podcast many times, but yeah, listen to BitSocket.
I've got Grim Fandango waiting to go. I haven't started playing that yet.
But is that what you would do
Yeah.
if you had the week off now?
Well, it wouldn't take me a week to play it, but
Not
that's,
retroactively.
that's where I'd start. That's top of my to-do pile.
Because I find that I've got this weird phenomenon that I always have. I always have like a game that I think, oh, I'm going to play this game.
Yeah.
I'm going to have 3 days off and I'm going to play this game.
You know what,
And
maybe
then I
I'd
get it and I
play-
play something else.
Yeah.
Like,
I might play Skyrim and actually play the main quest line.
Yeah.
Because I've
Yeah.
never done that before.
That's what I would like to do, I think. Or just like spend loads of time and get good at Hearthstone, or like there's so many things that I want to do. Or play like I bought the PS4 version of GTA 5 and haven't played any of it.
Touch that.
I really want to play Dragon Age Inquisition.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's
I
what
keep,
everyone's on about.
I keep really wanting to do that because like I've wanted to do a video for ages where I could critique all the sex scenes, but I just can't get to them all. So I'm like,
I'm generally thinking about taking a week off when Witcher 3 comes out. just so I can play
Yeah.
that properly. Because
thing
otherwise, I'll never play that.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that I'll never play Witcher 3 unless I take a week off to play.
The thing I find when what you do is playing games and making video about games is it becomes a point where if you don't play it within a certain window of launch,
Fucked.
You never
then you're
will.
like, well, I can't
So
really
true.
justify it
Yeah.
because like
It takes time.
If I started like
And who else do you talk to about it?
in April, like what do I do in April? If in
Yeah.
April it's like, well, here's my video about Dragon Age Inquisition.
Yeah.
People are like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like,
I think I generally would play GTA Online because everything I've played of GTA Online I really
It's
really
so
liked.
much fun.
And Heists are launching next week.
I've had lots of people asking me this question on Twitter. I might as well answer. Did you see your GP about diabetes? Which is obviously not a gaming.
Is that for me? No, I haven't. Are you looking at photos of me?
Gav, you've got to get yourself
keep-
checked. All right.
What a prick.
That's rude. That is really rude.
No, it's,
Well, you check yourself for diabetes, fucker.
this is a weird thing. Like Doctor Internet, the classic thing of like you
Don't
go on the
ever
internet.
Google your own
You
symptoms.
don't use Doctor Internet because you will always have the worst
Convince
thing.
yourself of-
You'll
yeah.
be
You
dying.
You didn't do that.
No, I didn't. But what happened was that this is like a variation of Doctor Internet in that when I was doing
Not Twitter internet.
no.
Twitter.
Could you imagine that? Just tweeting all of your symptoms. What do you reckon I got?
reckon
Yeah.
this
Well, we did a thing on regular features where I think I diagnosed myself, whereas I basically was just a little bit tired, and I diagnosed myself. Me, you, the three of us did it. Where I diagnosed myself, and it was just like dead.
Hemorrhoids.
Dead.
Ovarian. Like, just-
You got a baby
PMS.
going in your belly.
Yeah, you are pregnant.
You're gonna be Daddy Gav.
Yeah, don't do that.
No, it was when I did the charity live stream of Dark Souls 2 for a day.
Yeah.
And obviously,
Pants Man.
yeah, I did Pants Man with Chris Pratt and
your pants.
Jim. I'm not in my pants. Terms of service for Twitch means you're expressly forbidden from taking your clothes off
Showing
during the stream.
nipples.
That's how they get you.
Which I like to think was the result of the original Pants Man stream.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. But yeah, because I had like 500 people watching us for 12 hours straight, I had like tons of people saying,
What's wrong
Matt,
with
have you got diabetes?
Why?
Like loads of people. Because basically this is like the equivalent of instead of Googling what's wrong with you, if you've got like tons of people watching you for 12 hours, it's basically like you become like...
They're diagnosing me as they
They were
watch
actually
it.
watching
It's
you,
like a subject. You become a medical subject.
So you have to change where the
God.
money was going to halfway
was-
through. It's alright. It's not going to that anymore. It's going to diabetes.
What symptoms were you exhibiting?
What were you
Well,
doing?
I was regularly saying about I was really thirsty, and then
you need to pee a lot.
and I
or
needed to
something.
pee a lot. So people were jokingly counting how many times I'd gone to the toilet, and everyone was like, "He's gone to the toilet like 10 times in 4 hours. That's
Diabetes.
really bad."
Yeah.
And then they were like, "He's crashing really hard off the sugar, and when they eat donuts and stuff." So loads of people.
That's just being 29, surely.
I think it is, but that's the thing is I had loads of messages and I kind of ignored it, but then I had loads of people sending me messages afterwards when it was all up on YouTube as a thing saying,
I'm a doctor.
no,
and
let's say I've got it and
Yeah.
I think you might have
Oh,
diabetes.
shit.
So then I had to have this thing of then calling up the doctors and saying,
The internet thinks I have
Yeah.
diabetes.
I said,
Which said I got diabetes? We don't know what that is. Fuck off.
what it is.
so I said, she said, why do you think you've got diabetes? And I was like, oh,
internet
well,
told
like
me.
there was 500 people. that told me.
that I didn't look very well.
I know, right? It was ridiculous. But then I had blood tests really quickly.
And you
it's
do
like-
have diabetes.
I don't. Punchline is, yeah, I got shitloads of diabetes. But I don't have diabetes.
That's
it turns
good.
out I'm just really run
Tired.
down and tired and stressed, and
Yeah.
that's giving me all of the fun symptoms of
diabetes.
But yeah, thank you for that, because lots of people have been inquiring as to whether or not I have diabetes, because at one point I did think I might have, because I did have all of the symptoms.
Yeah.
It's only because
So,
they care. That's
I know, so it's very nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's an easy question to answer.
Yeah.
Bum, 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 bum. Somebody called Resolute BRW asks, how great is Hyrule Warriors? And how is Matt's will holding out against the amiibos? I gotta say, I'm really proud of myself.
Single amiibo.
I bought one amiibo,
Oh,
and
Toon
I
Link.
Toon Link. He is fucking cool.
Yeah.
And he's the only one I've bought and the only one I will buy. The quality of them is so nice.
Yeah.
But I'm only buying one.
I got sent a bunch and then I was sort of into it and then I didn't think I was going to be. Then I went on holiday and I know which ones are rare and I know which ones aren't rare. And I went on holiday and one of my friends, we had to stop off in the middle of nowhere in like the Blue Mountains in Sydney, just outside of Sydney.
Did you end up bartering your amiibos for like firewood?
Oh my
A
God.
friend of mine had to buy a cardigan, and we went into a Target, and I walked into the Target, and they
They
were
have Target
off,
in Australia.
Yeah, and they were off buying something. And I walked to the tech section, and I thought I'll just have a look at the games, see if there's something I can play. And I seen the amiibos, and I was like, Rosalina, that's a really rare one.
It is, yeah.
Villager, that's a really rare one. And I was like, how much are these? And they were like, oh, they're $17, which is about £9. And I was like,
Why? How much do they sell for?
like Rosslina's going for like 45 quid at the moment. Village is
You
going
just fill
for
your
more.
bags full. You buy everyone in the shop.
I didn't buy everyone in the shop. I bought ones of everything because I think buying twos of everything is shit. And in fairness, I bought ones of everything, and I text all my friends who I know collect Amiibos hardcore, going, "Do you need these?
Aww.
Because I've got them now. I just bought them in the middle of nowhere in Australia."
How'd
But
you
it was
have
like
room for them?
I discovered like I just had a bag. Like I took them all on carry on as well, so I had all these toys in my bag. But
They're not toys, they're collectible figurines.
But this is the thing. Like every shop I went in Australia, then every sort of electrical shop, I was like going off to see if I could find these Amiibos. That's super fun. That's like trying to find comics again, and like I've had that feeling for a while.
They're like Beanie Babies now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like the way that they've done it, and like the same with like Marvel, the way that they did when they do that, when they used to do their like proper like first printing, and that was all they would do. Like finding in like an issue 1 of something, like even like a couple of weeks later, was always really satisfying. And I felt really satisfied. I was just like, holy shit! And there's a couple of times on that holiday where I found other ones as well. Like I was just like, this is awesome. I feel like I've actually done something. I've just gone on a shop and bought something, but like with a little bit of sort of.
I
thing
get
in
it with
mind.
comics. I don't really get the appeal of Amiibos. I'm sorry.
Fuck you!
I'm sorry. I don't
that's
know.
fine.
I do like them, and they are really, really cool. But like, all I want to do is open them and put them up, and whereas they're just in the
people keep
packets
them
in the
boxes.
Yeah.
How lovely it is, though.
It's
so
alright.
annoying.
It's, I mean,
What are you talking
I
about?
just,
It's alright, look at it.
like, this is coming from someone who, I love Transformers, but that's just like.
Have you seen Amiibola?
No.
It's this very cool thing where people have been like painting
Oh,
their
look at his little. Oh, that's pretty.
people have been painting
There's loads
their
of detail on it.
Amiibos as if they're like been like infected,
That's
so
not
like zombies
cool.
and stuff. So
That's
they've been like
awesome.
so you're adding bits of other Amiibos onto them and like gluing it onto
Oh,
them,
nice.
and like painting them up as like zombies and stuff. And like some people, the custom paint jobs on Amiibos are really fucking good.
I think my favourite thing about them is quite simply just because I loved Smash Brothers on the N64 so much.
Yeah.
I just love the fact that the bases of them are like the Smash Brothers.
Exactly, yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you used to collect the figurines in Smash Brothers, they are just
Exactly
they're
that.
just them.
Yeah.
They are like
Yeah, they're
3D
the
real
trophies
versions
from-
of
Yeah.
the trophies from Smash Brothers.
It's mad how it's taken them
that's
so
brilliant.
long to get to this as well.
Well, I'm glad because at the moment
They're doing
like,
it well.
They're like I think that as far as I can tell, I think Nintendo are like probably out of the home console business for
Yeah.
a little while. It seems like they maybe not permanently, but it seems like they're kind of maybe taking a step back and they're just focusing on handheld and new stuff. And it's just
Until
brilliant
new
to see
Zelda
them
comes along.
doing so
Yeah.
well with toys, and because they are really good at that.
Yeah.
And it's fine. So yeah.
I like Amiibos. I'm not massively into it yet, but I did like finding them.
Has anyone played Hyrule Warriors?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
it's awesome.
have.
Is it
Yeah,
good?
it's good.
Really good.
I didn't expect to like it at all.
Yeah.
But as someone who has never played Dynasty Warriors but has played all the Zeldas, there was
fun.
there was a lot of fan service there, and it was just quite nice. Yeah, it was quite fun.
Yeah.
Like that's it. It was just fun to sort of.
I'm
run
holding
around.
out for a 3DS version. I don't know if it'll ever happen.
Don't think so.
But you never know, Gav. You never know. Because I just think because it's kind of Dynasty Warriors-y, right?
Yes.
Where
Yeah.
you basically just play like short little levels.
Yes.
Again and again
Just-
forever.
Yeah.
Killing shit.
So
with
that
these
would be
things.
perfect on the 3DS.
It does look lovely though. That it would be perfect on 3DS, but it does look really, really good on Wii.
Yeah, but
And
my
plus,
Wii
you
is
can-
in
you can
a
play a Wii
cardboard
for like.
box.
Oh, you've got one.
I've
Yeah.
got one. It's in a cardboard box.
Yeah, get it over a
Right.
weekend. There you go. If you get a week off, that's what you
Yeah.
can do. That's the answer to the question as well.
Yeah. I somebody's played Skyward Sword after Steve recommended it to me 5 years
Oh,
ago.
You need to play Skyward Sword.
I think the benefit of retrospect. I mean, I still love Skyward Sword, but it's gone down in the in fans' estimations of where it sits in the series as being a fairly mediocre Zelda game. I still
quite
love it.
enjoyed
No, I think it's
Yeah,
really
I
good.
still
I think
really
same
liked
people
it.
think that with Twilight Princess as well. I think Twilight Princess is still fun.
I thought
Bang.
Twilight Princess was okay.
Yeah.
I didn't like it when you got to the place in the sky and it was just a shit temple. But anyway,
So when you work for Official Nintendo magazine and you get given
Skyward Sword,
a
yeah.
Legend of Zelda game to review, it's quite a big
Yeah.
Quite a big deal.
yeah.
Yeah.
You can get very
the
excited.
3DS one, fantastic. The recent one, the Link Between Worlds, or
It's
no,
wicked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it
That's
Link
right.
Between
Yeah.
Worlds?
She was.
fantastic. Because I saw videos of it, and I saw screenshots of it, and I thought this just looks like nothing. It looks like another. It looked very uninventive. It looked very like repetitive. I just thought, I wasn't impressed by it. I wasn't interested. But when I played it, even though I couldn't quite work out why, because it's like it seems like it was just so derivative. It's just so lovely
it's
to
not at all,
play
yeah.
that it's just an incredible. It's
a clever game.
I really hope they keep doing more of them, but not in the way they did on the DS of releasing a new one, but with a train or a new one but with a boat. Do you remember they did them?
Yeah.
And they were just all like,
the boat one was really good.
Yeah.
they were all right.
Spirit
but
Tracks not so much, but
I like Spirit Tracks.
I was just,
There's a lot of them. It seemed like there was a lot of them.
and they just were well fillery. Like, go back and do that same dungeon 8 times. Was that, you know?
yeah.
I like that. Sorry.
I liked it the first 4 times, but then when it was like towards the end, it was like, don't make me do this again.
Yeah, it's true.
Anyway, I think we'll probably wrap it up there, to be honest.
Yeah, I need a pee.
Yeah,
I need to pee as well.
too.
We all need to
God.
pee.
We'll have to take it in turns.
I'll go in the bath.
I'll go in the sink and you can go in the toilet.
Yay!
Well, I was going to clean the bathroom tomorrow anyway, so sorry.
That's fine. We'll hose it down for you, Matt.
Yeah, I know that's the problem. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.
Bye.